Hi guys, and welcome to Zoo Creates at Home. It's me and Teagan and Kezia. We're back to make another craft with you today. And today we selected to make salt dough sand boas. So first we're gonna have to make our dough. So make sure you have a mixing bowl of some sort. And then make sure you also have a measuring cup of some sort. So we're gonna measure based on this cup. So it can be any size, but we're gonna use it consistently for measuring. So when we're making the salt dough, you need some sort of flour. So you don't have to have all-purpose flour like me. You can use any type of flour, like almond flour, or if it's, not all-purpose, but still wheat flour. Any kind of flour will work. And then I'm also going to use salt. So that's what makes it salt dough. But if you don't have enough salt to spare, or you would just like an alternative, Keisha's actually going to show us how to make it with sand. So you just need that green, like salt or sand, that texture. So we're going to start by measuring our flour. And it's going to be 2 parts flour to 1 part salt, or in Keisha's case, the sand. So we're going to use our measuring scoop and we're going to count 2 of the flour. All right, so I'm going to get 2 scoops of flour. 1, 2, and then only 1 scoop of the sand or salt. Fill that up. Now, if you want to make a really big sink, you could just repeat that process and you could do 2 more flour and 1 more salt. But I think that looks like it's going to make plenty of dough. So then I'm going to stir it up so that salt is mixed into the flour. Just like that. All right, I think that's pretty well mixed. And then we're gonna start adding our water. Now you wanna add just a little bit at a time because we don't wanna make soup, we wanna make dough. So I'm just gonna add just like maybe a teaspoon, just a little bit in there. And then I'm gonna start stirring in the middle and then work my way out. And on the outside, you wanna stir in that water just a little bit and you'll see that some clumps start forming. Now you want most of it to be clumpy, so make sure you're stirring it pretty good and seeing those clumps. Now I see a lot of like powdery mixture still, so I'm gonna add a little bit of water, just a little bit, until all of it gets a little clumpy. But like I said, be careful how much you add. You don't want it to get too runny, you want it to be doughy. There we go. And if there's just a little bit of powder left, that's okay, because we can then, once that's kind of clumped, then I'm just going to start using my fingers. And I'm going to start mushing it together. Like so. And I might sprinkle just a little bit more, just so I can grip some of that powdery stuff. Okay, just like so. Now if you make it too wet, it'll get really sticky. If you have it too dry, then it's not gonna stick together. So you want just the right amount of water. Like this. So now I can see that it's going to clump together for me.
Mine's just a little sticky.
A little sticky. So what you can do is then you could add some more flour and salt to it, so that it dries it back out.
I don't think I have any flour over here, so.
Okay. So I'm just going to start forming it into a snake. Now I'm gonna have to grip mine because it's still a little dry. So this is up to you of how you wanna experiment with it. I want mine to be kind of dry because I don't want it to take a long time to dry out. So I'm just gonna form it with my fingers. But I'm sure Kezia, with yours a little sticky, You could even put a little flour on your surface and then roll it in the flour so that the outside doesn't stick to your fingers as much, but that inside is still moldable.
There's no flour over here. Thank you.
Yeah, you can see how that works for you. All right, so I've got that into a snake, and I'm gonna kind of make it into a snake shape because snakes tend to make an S shape because they move by slithering. So snakes don't have legs. Instead, they use their muscles and they contract their muscles and push themselves along the ground using scales. So they've got some big scales on their belly that help them. Now, sand boas have kind of a pointy nose and a pointy tail. So at the ends, I'm gonna kind of round or push them and pinch them so that they make a point. Okay, and if you would like color, you could add sprinkles or glitter to your dough as you were mixing it. I've got here some watercolors, and I might, kind of brush some watercolors on the outside. You could also water down some paint, or make some food coloring water. On some of our other segments, we made some mud paint, so you could do some mud paint. And a lot of snakes use that color to blend into their surroundings. So we would call that camouflage. So you would want to use colors that would help your snake camouflage. Now, if this was a snake up in the trees, I might use some green. But since I know that sand boas are gonna like the sand, I wanna use colors that make me think of sand. So maybe some browns and yellows, like so.
So messy.
Get some patterns on there because I know spots and blotches help animals blend in. A lot of animals, like maybe a giraffe, have that spotted pattern that helps them blend in with the tall grasses in those dry areas. And that's our sand boa. Oh, I forgot, our sand boa has eyes.
Yep.
So I have some little pebbles. These are just little pebbles that I found outside, and I'm gonna put those on there as my eyes. And sand boas, since they're in the sand, they don't have very big eyes. And in fact, most snakes don't have very big eyes. But sand boas especially want smaller eyes because they don't want to get sand in them. So they need just small eyes. All right, and I'll turn my snake around so you can see. All right. How's it going, Kezia? Ooh, I like how yours is kind of chubby. It's a little shorter and wider. I tend to think of sand boas as being a little bit shorter and wider.
Yes.
As opposed to some other snakes that can get very, very long. Mm-hmm. All right. So, now we've already talked a little bit about sand boas.
Yep.
Kezia, would you be ready to talk a little bit more?
Yeah, we can talk a little bit more. Let me get some things cleared off here.
All right.
We can get our real sand boa out.
Yeah. So we're gonna get our masks on because we want to be safe around the sand boa. Okay.
I'm gonna clear off some
of that mess.
Yes.
Yes, this is definitely a messy one. So make sure you've got some paper towels ready.
Good thing we have gloves to put on today.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yes, I love that glitter in your dough, Kezia.
Oh, thanks.
It's nice and shiny, like those snails. Oops, daisy. Snake scales. I mixed those two words together and it made snail.
All right. Almost ready.
I also really like using sand as an alternative.
Yeah.
If we're gonna call it a sand boa, right?
Yep, and I really like that texture too. That felt really nice. All right, so we'll go ahead and get her out. Okay.
Very cool.
So you can kind of see her in here. I'll pull her out for just a second. Okay. All righty. Let's make sure I know who this, I think this is Ka, correct?
I think so.
All right, so this is Ka, one of our Kenyan sand boas here at Blaine Park Zoo. She is, like Teagan was saying earlier, quite thicker than most of the snakes that we normally see, and shorter too. So she is a boa, so that means she is a constrictor. She is much smaller than most of the boas we think of, especially when we're thinking of strictly just a boa constrictor who can get 14 plus feet in length. When these guys here, this is almost full grown. So these guys need to stay so small because they actually spend most of their time underneath the sand. So they will bury themselves just like this sand that you guys see here, completely under the sand, only showing their face and their nose so that they can breathe and see. And they spend a lot of their time under there just because being kind of smaller and living in Kenya, in the habitats that they live in, there's not a ton of things to kind of hide in, but there's a lot of sand. So that's why they spend a lot of time under there, and they do constrict their food, all right? So it's a little bit different than we would think of a normal constrictor, where they kind of latch onto their food and then wrap their bodies around it. Kenyan sand boas don't need to actually put that much work into her food that she's getting. So what she has to do is she waits and she ambushes her prey. So she waits underneath that sand until she feels some vibrations of another animal. So be that a smaller mouse, or even when sand boas are very young, even like smaller insects and things like that, they will eat. And once they get close enough to where they're hiding, these guys will jump out and grab their prey and pull them underneath the sand, and they allow the sand to do the work for them. So they don't really have to constrict their bodies around it or anything like that. They use their body for digging and for making sure that they are deep underneath that sand to hide. Yeah, so Teagan, do you have any questions for me and Ka here?
So where is Ka from?
So, like her specifically, or her species?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would like to know how she came to be at the zoo, but, you know, where would we find other snakes like her?
So yeah, so we would find other snakes like Ka in Africa. So these guys are an African species, and I'm not 100% sure how she came to us at the zoo. So she's been here quite a bit longer than I have, and sometimes those stories get a little bit mixed up for me, so I'm not 100% sure, and I don't want to tell you guys something that's not true.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right. So what are some of Ka's favorite things to do?
So yeah, so Ka loves to kind of bask underneath her heat lamps or in the sun when we take her outside. And she loves hanging out with her sister underneath that sand. And then, of course, she loves having those really tasty meals of those small mice.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so her scales look really shiny.
They are, so that's why people think that snakes are slimy. Ka here is not slimy at all. She is just very shiny and very beautiful. So her scales are very slick and healthy, so they're gonna shine when the light hits them like that. So that's why she looks kind of slick and slimy, but she is 100% dry.
Does she move slowly or fast?
It depends. So right now she's comfortable and she's just kind of checking things out. So she's going to move a little bit slower. But if she felt nervous or she felt like she had to get away from something, they are very, very fast at digging, and they're super fast at moving too. So she would probably jerk a little bit and then get away as fast as she could. It would be very difficult to catch one of these guys if you were trying to out in the wild. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it either. We should leave our wildlife alone, especially like our snakes and things like that too. We want to make sure that they feel comfortable and they feel safe, and we're staying safe and comfortable as well.
Very cool. Mm-hmm. All right, well, thank you so much for sharing all that
course.
information. And thank you, everybody watching at home. Please stay tuned. We've got lots more crafts, and coming up, we will have some snacks as well that you can make with us. So hang in there, keep commenting, and we'll see you soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye.